Well, here we are. It is Friday again. It's today is October 17th, 2025. The weather here, it's certainly getting colder. It probably is if you're anywhere in our part of the world. At any rate, winter's coming. And I just heard that we're supposed to have a lot of snow this winter. This is what they're predicting anyway. But then again, they predicted last spring we were going to have a lot of hurricanes this season all through the south, and I don't think we had hardly any. So we'll see how they do this time around. A lot happened this week. There's been a bunch of sales. There's some sales going on today that are doing quite well. The sales that we looked at last week and the week before, a number of them closed out. We're going to go through some of the results and take a look at a few things that are coming up. And it's going to quiet down a little bit for the next week or so. And then we're going to have the November sales turning up for Asian art over in England. This is their big month for all the sort of mid-range galleries, and some of them are very well respected. Woolley and Wallace will be having a sale, of course. I suspect Roseberry's will be, Druites will be. There's a list of them. We've set aside a list. We're going to go back and keep you up to date as things come on, because some interesting things turn up there in these fall sales, and they get a lot of attention from collectors in Asia, of course, because England is such a repository of huge amounts of Chinese art still. To this day, so much of it went there over the years, and it's still lingering around those English country houses. But before we get into what's coming up, I want to talk a little bit about some of the results the last few days and give you a sense of how things are going. And we're going to start with this. This was at Gallery Zach had this very nice set of four Chinese tea production paintings, Chinese school. They dated them as just 19th century. They actually were done around 1800. Early 19th century. These were quite nice, and they sold fairly well because they were very large. These were unusually large sheets, and they looked to be in very fine condition. Very, very fine condition, and the work on it, to me, points right to about 1790 to about 1810. Nice early examples, and they were very well done. And in the end, they did pretty well. They ended up selling for $5,200 plus the premium. They were estimated at $3,000 to $6,000, which I think was reasonable. And so there you are. All right, and that's just an indication. I like to see China trade paintings starting to get a little more respect in the market, because for the last 20 years they've been absolute bargains. A year or so ago, I bought some tea production paintings. I think framed and miniature ones, very desirable ones, and I think I bought them for $350 for the pair. And that was just a few years ago. So it seems like things are changing, and I hope that's the case. I don't mind paying less myself, of course, but it's nice to see the market healthy. It was a good opportunity for the last 15 or 20 years to buy China trade stuff, because the prices were artificially depressed because all the attention in the Asian art market, of course, was on the Chinese domestic wares. Now that's starting to change, and we've seen it all through the year so far this year. So there we are. And here's another example. These are very nice Armorial export platters. We brought these up to everybody's attention a couple of weeks ago when they first came up, because I thought they were so pretty. They're awfully nice. And this was at Dumouchel's out in Michigan, right? They were Michigan, Detroit, Michigan, yeah. And but beautifully done. These were really, really nice platters, and they were quite large, very finely painted, probably done around 1780 or so, 1790. But exceptional quality and in very, very good condition, both. I think this was a very reasonable price. So $1,400 plus premium. The estimate was peanuts. It was $250 to $500. We thought that was artificially rather low, but it may also be because they thought that's what they would bring because of the last 15 to 20 years I just mentioned. They may have thought, well, maybe they're not going to do that well. Anyway, the biggest platter was 14 and a half inches in width. The smaller one was 13 inches, and they sold for around. Comes up to about $2,000, by the time you're done with the buyer's premium, roughly, or 1,890, something like that. But they were very attractive, and I think they were worthwhile. And then there was this. I think this was sort of a bargain for the week. This was at Dumouchel's also. Was this very nice these immortals playing in a field on a Chinese export plate. Very unusual subject matter. Very unusual. And I think this was quite a rare plate, frankly. And I think somebody got a fantastic buy. The other pair of plates did very well. This somehow slipped through the cracks. It may be because it's atypical. And as I've said many, many times, when you have something that's atypical, unusual, people will try to look them up and see what the last one like it sold and if sold for. And if they can't find it, they don't have the courage to buy based on their own emotional feelings about the piece. They don't buy on emotion. They buy purely on for economic reasons, and you end up missing out on great things. And if one of you bought this plate, bravo, you got a great plate. You got a really nice plate. Very, very desirable, rare type, and I guarantee you'll find it somewhere. All right, and it just sold for $350 plus the premium. It was 9 inches in diameter, and they dated it as 19th century. This is an 18th century plate. They were off a little bit on it, but quite a nice piece of porcelain, I think. Unusual. All right, and then this was at Dumachel's also. These were the Rockefeller plates. So remember, there were two of them in the sale in this pattern. These were very nice and instantly recognizable, of course. And this was a superb-looking plate, and it went for $4,500 plus premium. So it ended up coming in at a little under $6,000. Not a surprise. These always do well, especially if the gilding and all the enamels are in beautiful condition, because often they're not. Often the gilding is wiped off of it and so forth. And even those have good value to them. But when they come up, when they're as crisp as this one is, and an interesting figural procession scene or group of people moving through the middle, people carrying food, and looks like there's a couple of servants are hauling, looks like dinner or something with them. And then there's a man and a woman on a horse, rather elegantly dressed, and it's just a lovely scene. 4,500 plus the premium, very, very nice. And then moving along over to this, just to bring you up to date on it. This was there were two of these pots, these Cloisonné pieces that were in the sale at Alderfer's, and they listed them erroneously as being by Namakawa Yatsuyuki. And they were estimated at $1,000 to $2,000, which of course is a very, very low estimate for Yatsuyuki's work. And they had the silver plate on the bottom, like as he would have done them originally, except the signatures didn't match up. The signatures were wrong, and instead of selling for $15,000 or $20,000, this example sold for $2,000, because some people will speculate. They'll believe the title, they'll look it up, and they'll say, well, it must be okay. They copied these. Namakawa Yatsuyuki's work was copied. He was so popular and his pieces did so well that other high-end studios would often copy his work or do their best work and then put a silver plate on the bottom and try to sell it as one of his. But as we went over the signatures, they were off. They were way off. And they looked stylistically like his work, but they weren't his work. So you end up with somebody buying this for more than it's probably worth. All right, and then this was sold over at Doyle's down in New York last week. This wonderful Harise carpet. I mentioned this last week or a week or two ago. I can't remember when. This was a spectacularly pretty rug with a very unusual series of patterns on it, actually, with an ivory and cobalt blue background. And then you have this big medallion in the center with drop pendants on the ends. And then they're all outlined like you would see on serape carpets. This was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful carpet, and it was large. It was a 14 and a half by 11 foot 3. So this was a very, very big rug for square footage, and I think it went very reasonably. It was sold for $10,000 plus the premium, so around $13,000 all said and done. But wonderful quality. And if you've been into a high-end rug shop in New York City, a rug like this, they're going to ask around $45,000 for it. So buying rugs at auction is really the way to buy them if you know what to look for and how to look at them. And this was a great carpet. So bravo. Maybe one of you bought this, I don't know, but it's a fantastic rug to put in a living room or a dining room or in a family room or something. Just beautiful. And they're wonderful to have on your floor when you take family photos because they give a nice background. All right. And then there was this. Now, this was at Gallery Zach, and a couple of people asked me about this. Yes, this is the same screen that sold at Leland Little's last January. I don't know if I bothered pulling up the picture of it, but you may remember last or February 20, 20 something last spring. They had a sale, an Asian sale, and they had that very nice little screen. And they didn't catalog it. They weren't sure if it was jade or not. I think they just cataloged it as a hardstone screen. This is the same screen, and it sold for basically the same amount of money. It sold for 5,500 plus premium there, and at this sale it sold for 5,500 euros plus premium. So it sold for maybe they squeezed another $500 out of it. But after shipping and all that, you didn't really make much money on it, whoever owned it. But at any rate, that happens a lot. You'll see things sell in the U.S. and then they'll pop up 6 months later over in the EU somewhere. And in this case, it went to Gallery Zach. And what is their commission on this thing? 30%. So it's sort of a zero-sum gain, I guess. And then over to this. This was at Skinner's this week. I think this was sort of a really good buy. It was a late 17th century barber bowl, a Mari barber bowl. And you don't see these very often. They were made for the European market, the Dutch market, and so forth. And this one I like the way it was decorated. It has the Twin Phoenix design on it. And they're very sort of, the plate is very sort of loosely, so almost playfully decorated. I like the spacing of it. I like the tone of the cobalt on it, and of course the Amari palette, red and gold, and all that. The blue is all underglaze on these, and it was made as a barber's bowl. You can tell here. Sometimes you'll find plates that were in Europe. I had one years ago. It was a Hongxi plate that had been broken on the rim, and somebody had taken the break out and put a lead edge on the edge of the plate and turned it as a make-do and turned it into a barber's bowl, which I thought that's the reason I bought it, was I thought it was a really interesting use, and ended up selling it to a guy who collects them. But this was a nice example, and I think it was very reasonable. Sale was held out in Marlborough, Mass. $240 against a $500 to $700 estimate, which I thought was reasonable. So there you go. All right, and then over to this. This was Freeman's had their Armorial porcelain sale, and overall it did really well. Again, China trade stuff is starting to get some interest. This sold for $3,000 plus the premiums, or about $4,000 for this dish. Very nice piece of Armorial ware, and all of the Armorial ware pieces did well. I have to say I didn't pick just the most expensive one. I went through and I grabbed one that looked very attractive. So all of them did well, strong across the board. Now remember, Bronx also has a sale coming up with some Armorial pieces. I think some of them might have repairs to them, so that'll have an impact on them. But you want to watch this market. I think you're going to see some activity in the coming year on this stuff. All right, and then hopping along, and this was the other one that was at Freeman's, was the cornucopia plate. I mentioned this a couple of times just because I thought it was so appealing, such an attractive piece of porcelain with a gilt rim and so forth. And we did a video over on the Patreon side this week, and I happened to mention this plate as well. I just like it personally, so I just keep mentioning it, I guess. But a very nice quality. The other crazy thing that happened around here this week, just as an aside, and this went for $3,500 plus the premium, about $4,500. You may remember last winter I had trouble. We had a computer that burned out, and it wasn't that old, but I spilled coffee on it, and that wasn't good for it, and that was it. Well, we got another one of these very fancy Lenovo IBM machines with 48 gigs of RAM and 2.5 terabytes of hard drive and the best video card and all that. Well, it was dead last weekend. It died on me. And I sent it out to my computer guy. He has no idea what happened to it. He said he's never seen this happen to a machine before. I didn't do anything. It was working fine when I went to bed. I got up in the morning and it was kaput. So this week, for the first 5 days of this week, we spent all our time running around getting Dell to put together quickly a computer for us, which they did. Bravo to Dell. And we now have this one that I'm recording this on, which is a more powerful machine than the last one. This is a 4 terabyte, 64 megabytes of RAM on it. And that's as far as you could probably go with a laptop, I think. But at any rate, we're hoping this. I went for the most powerful machine they make, just so we wouldn't have to do this again, because it was a nightmare and we had to pull all the data off the old hard drive and find a way to get that off. Oh, at any rate, I won't go into it, but it's been a hell of a week around here. That's all I can tell you. when little things go wrong, everything goes wrong. Anyway, and this was it. So that's why I was planning to do a video earlier this week on a sale, and I couldn't do it. I was using a what was I using? Oh, I was using a 12-year-old HP laptop we had kicking around the house, mostly for just traveling and things. That was running on, I think it was running on Vista or something like that, or Windows 8. I forget, some horrible platform. And that's all I had this week, and some of the keys don't work. So I was getting through the week on that. Any rate, we'll get back to the work here. This is the cornucopia plate did well. And then there was the Kaza Sikes sale. And I think a number of you bought at this sale from what I've heard this week on emails from folks. And this turned out to be just a great little auction. There were a couple of pieces in here that we talked about that were not what they thought they were, but the rest of these pieces, all these little provincial Ming pieces, if you watch the sale, it did quite well. And this was a great sale for people who like Ming blue and white and can't, waltz into Rockefeller Center or go to Sotheby's and drop $100,000 on a bowl. All right, this was a very nice sale. They had some lovely examples in here, and these pieces had all been exhibited years ago and put in a book. So they had pretty good provenance, and there were some really interesting, sort of charming examples. All right, and it proves you don't have to spend a fortune to get nice things. Few of the things did very well. They brought pretty good money. We'll go through some of them. One of the pieces that was very nice in this was this Qingbai spotted ewer from the Yuan dynasty. This was a very nice little example. I like the form a lot. I like the decoration. I like the lizard. It was a lizard or a baby dragon spout handle on the side, and it was just a charming thing. And it was only estimated; it had a very low estimate, $200 to $300. And as we said, the estimates don't mean anything. And this ended up selling for $2,600 plus the premium, and it's fairly small. These are all small, as you know. This was 4.5 inches tall and sold for around $3,400 all done. Against a $300 high estimate. And that's sort of how the sale went for the most part. This was a great little thing. I had a couple of people ask me about this. It's underglazed iron red from the Yuan dynasty. And those of you who've been buying porcelain for any length of time know that's pretty rare. You don't see underglazed red very often on early pieces, especially Yuan pieces. And this had it. And these charming little loop handles, typically these are done in blue and white, and they're worth $200 to $400. But when you put underglazed red on them, the prices change. And this one ended up going for $17 plus premium, or around $2,300, $2,200 roughly. And this was very small pot, 2¼ inches in height. Very, very small, but nice quality. And then this did very well. Now, don't be shocked by this. It brought $14,000 plus premium, about $19,000 or $18,000 roughly, somewhere in there, at a $200 to $300 estimate. Now, like I said, the estimates don't mean a thing. But the thing is that the size of it, this looks like a 5-inch bowl visually. It reads like a 5-inch bowl. This bowl was 13¼ inches in diameter. This was basically like a punch bowl. This was a big piece of porcelain, and that's fairly unusual for these. You don't see them this size hardly ever. They sort of top out at about 8 or 9 inches typically, and those are considered big ones. This one was almost double that, and that explains the price. And there was another one that brought around $13,000 that was also big. I think it was an inch smaller than this one. But that's the reason why. So if you saw this, if you see prices like this sometimes against those kinds of, especially $200 to $300 estimates, always check the size of the piece. And what you'll find out sometimes is that the image didn't do it justice about how big it was. If they had put something in the photograph that's familiar size, often we did it too. We used to use a very sort of empty, expensive bottle of wine because they look nice, but everybody knows how big a standard bottle of wine is. So you could tell. And if it was in there, it would have read differently. But obviously people did read the dimensions and went, wow, that's a big one. And it brought a big price. It did very well. And then hopping along, there was this one, another one. This is a smaller bowl, obviously. It is 6 inches in diameter, very nicely decorated. Went for $650 plus premium. This was a lovely little bowl. And there were many like them. I didn't know which ones to pick out to talk about because so many of them were rather charming. This was a pretty nice little bowl. Had nice tight decoration. It's provincial ware, but well done. And the interior of it was quite attractive. It had these radiating rudy heads coming off of it, and there were several plates in this sale and platters that had this somewhat similar pattern. But it was a popular pattern in the mid 15th and 16th century in China. So $650 plus premium, or around about $800, I guess. And then there was this great big Hongxi conch plate. Rather nicely done with vines and flowers all around the outside, about 12 and a half inches in diameter, as I recall, 12 and a half inches. $4,800 plus premium, or around, comes in at about $6,000 for the plate. All right, and there's another one coming up of this same type out west in a sale. I think in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about that next week. I gotta pull it up. Now, if some of you had planned on buying at this sale, you might want to get a hold of them. This might still be available. And I have no idea why this passed. I have no idea why. It didn't look like it had been repaired. It's a very similar form to that yawn spotted ewer we looked at the beginning. Same general form. This one is a little bit later, probably 14th to 15th century, but nice looking. And I looked at this very carefully. I don't see anything wrong with it. I couldn't see any damage to it. In the bottom of it here, that looks all perfectly fine for Ming. I have no idea why this didn't sell. It was a total mystery to me. I would have thought this would have, of all the things that were in the sale, this would have been definitely in the group that sold. I don't think it got a bid. No, maybe people just missed it. That does happen. And the opening bid was just $100 on this. So if you like these kinds of things, and this one isn't terribly big. It's a pretty good size for one of these. Actually, it's almost 5 inches tall. Get a hold of Kaza Sikes, see if they still have it and is it available post sale, and offer them $200 for it. See what they say. All right, now over to this. This was another bowl. This was the Flying Horse bowl. I like this one. It reminded me of the old mobile gasoline company ads with the flying horses. This one had a nice deep cobalt blue color to it, mid 16th century, I would guess. And it was 5 3/4 inches in diameter, and it sold for $1,200 plus the premium, or around about $1,600 all done. But very pretty, very nice color on it. And it had a rather interesting inside with a fish coming up out of the waves. Looks like a bear almost, but it is a fish. It's supposed to be a fish anyway. And the artist, I think, maybe made a little boo-boo on that, so it didn't quite come out like he wanted. But that's what you get with provincial pieces sometimes. And the last thing was this kendi. I thought this kendi was very interesting. It's we've all seen these before. It's a very popular, it's a very well-known form from the late Ming, Wanli, Chai-Ching period in there. And the decoration on it is what caught my eye. It's very boldly decorated. Often these are painted quite differently, more finely done, narrower lines. This one was painted with a lot of gusto. This one was decorated with a pretty heavy brush, and it worked. The way they had everything scrolling around on it, it looked like it was in very good condition, and it brought sort of the price of a regular kendi, $1,500. That's what they often, they typically sell when we've seen them turn up at sales in Holland. They get them all the time, the more typical ones. So they sell for between $1,200 and $1,800 plus premium, and this one sold for $1,500 plus premium. But I think it was very unusual. So if you're a kendi collector, this would have been something good to buy, because it's a very unusual design. It's highly unusual. All right. And other things that sold this week that were rather interesting. This was at the Austrian Auction Company. This is Langhauer's business over there. He runs good auctions, and he gets some very good rugs from time to time. And he had an old collection of early rugs. And everybody, I know a number of you like old rugs. I love old rugs. And he had this. This is a very early Asari main carpet. And notice this light blue that's floating through it. This is an extremely rare rug. And I believe this one was published in several books at one point, about 20 or so years ago, 30 years ago, because of the rareness of it. And there are later examples that are similar in pattern, and they can be confused for these. But this is a really old one, and beautifully done. And here's a good look at it. And it's got a natural orange in it. A lot of times people see orange in a rug and they think, oh, it's a chemical dye, because this whole fear of chemical dyes in the rug world. They don't buy them if it's got a synthetic color in it, and they're buying antique rugs. They won't touch one that's got a synthetic dye. This is not a synthetic orange. That's an natural orange. They were able to make them, and that's why they started making synthetic ones. Especially they started doing them in Germany and bringing them into the Middle East. Of course, they were aniline dyes, and they wrecked the rugs after about 10 years, but that's another story. Anyway, this was very nice. It had this very attractive teal blue in it, very unusual colors. And they dated this one to, what is it dated to? Turkmenistan radiocarbon dated it to 1659. That's a really old rug. And it sold for 36,000 euros or 42,000 US plus premium. So around $56,000 for this carpet. It measured 9 by 7 feet. And everything in the sale did very well. This was just one example. All right, and then over to this. Now, this was kind of a nice surprise for the week. We had pointed this out a few weeks ago when it first came up. There's a nice late 17th century Japanese Arita blue and white faceted vase. And this was at Clark Auction Gallery in Larchmont. It was 18.9 inches tall, almost 19 inches tall. But very nice color, very well done. Had a very low estimate, $500 to $700. And it took off, and it ended up going for about $2,600. And this is good to see. Again, Japanese things seem to be getting a little respect. You may remember a few weeks ago, they had some Amari jars that sold over in England and with lids, and they did very well. They brought $6,000, $8,000. And we haven't seen those kinds of prices in a while. I think that sale was at Ruit's, as I recall. You can go check it. But there seems to be some interest coming back into the collector's market with these blue and white pieces, and this was an awfully nice one. And I don't think anybody overpaid for it. I think that it deserved every bit of that. But you haven't seen that much interest in a number of years, so that's good. All right. And the next thing that's coming up is the Naidow sale. And I hope some of you have looked at that, especially those of you who like monochromes. I mentioned it sort of in passing a couple of weeks ago, and I went back and gave it a good hard look. There's some nice pieces in here, and some of them come from the Rockefeller Dodge family. These nice monochromes. They're mentioned in the monochromes. It's mentioned in the descriptions who they came from. And some of the pieces are from an institution in this sale. They've got a pretty good load in here going along, coming up. And when is this sale? It's on October 26th, a little over a week from now. All right. And you want to go through it. Let me see here. Hold on. Here it is. You have I'm out of order a little bit. I'll have to go back. You have the pieces like this. And this comes from property of a Northeast institution, the collection of Geraldine Rockefeller Dodge. And this kind of stuff, we used to see porcelains like this here in New England from old collections all the time. When the collection was formed between around 1890, 1900, and the early 1930s, these were very, very popularly collected. Not so much today, it seems, except for people that are really ceramic fans, because these were some of the early old pieces that came in. And this was an 18th century censer, nice crackle ware, a surface to it, very finely crackled. There's the interior of it. Good looking piece of porcelain, very reasonable estimate, $500 to $1,000, $250 starting bid. And they're dating it just as Qianlong period. I suspect that's what the deaccession information said on it. 7 3/4 inches in diameter. So, It's a nice looking thing. It's beautifully potted, very strongly potted. Again, these are all monochromes, but there's some nice monochromes in here. And if you're a monochrome buyer, you definitely want to take a good look at this sale. There it is. And the quickest way to get to these things, incidentally, you just go up here and type in Chinese. This is how I do it, so I don't have to fan through 100 pages. And you'll see there's a fair bit of material in here. There's some pieces in here that I don't think are all that old, to be perfectly honest, but there are some old pieces in here. It's sort of toward the end. Here they are. These crackleware bowls, this vase, there's a number of them in here. There's a number of them in this sale. Then there's this very, very nice dark amber snuff bottle. If you're a snuff bottle buyer, and there's some more of these monochromes here. It's a good collection. It's a very handsome collection. And the estimates seem low, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of interest as of yet. Now, we may see them take off like they often do, but for now, it seems like there may be an opportunity. One of the things I did want to mention, though, in the sale are these plates. These are Chinese export cornerless prunk pattern plates. These are not antique. These are not old ones. These are not from the Yongchen period. These are much later 20th century copies. He was fairly heavily copied, and if you look at the workmanship and all the heavy orange peel down there and so forth, if you've been collecting for a while, you know right away that these are not old ones. These are probably early 20th century, or very, very, very end of the Qing dynasty. But the workmanship, this sort of muddy looking wavy ground that they're on and so forth. So if you're looking at these and you're thinking that they're by cornerless prunk, the pattern came from him, but they weren't made in the 1730s when he was doing it. These were done 150, 200 years later. All right. So just keep that in mind if you're giving it any thought. The other thing that's in the sale is this, and this is for people. I know some people collect these over-the-wall bowls, these dragon over-the-wall bowls they call them. These are rather nice and they're very big. Typically, these over-the-wall pieces are 4 or 5 inches, 6 inches in diameter, and they're bowls. This is a pair of plates with deep sides, and they're 11 inches in diameter each. And they're mid 19th century Qing examples, but they're perfectly nice. And they even have plate hooks on them, so you can hang them on your wall, and that's so they're ready to go. And the estimate is $300 to $500, which is extremely reasonable. But they're getting some interest. There's 41 people watching these because a lot of people collect them. It's just one of those things. It's a pattern that people love to collect, and it's got this very beautifully done in a 3-clawed dragon. All right, and then hopping along, this is another piece that's at the Nade House sale. These are the tea dust glazed snuff bottle and the flambe or the oxblood red snuff bottle. Again, $100 to $200 estimate. They should bring $800 to $1,000, but we'll see. And there's that. There's that again. All right, and this. Now, this is coming up also at Nade House, and I wanted to mention it because of the vase, the big vase in the middle. That's a very nifty looking vase. It's turquoise. It's 18th century. The other pieces are old, but the one and some of them, I think this vase on the right has some damage to it. These came out of an apartment apparently in New York City. But this big vase in the middle, sort of like based on an archaistic sort of bronze form with these flanges going down the sides. And it's a fairly big vase. It's 14 inches tall in turquoise. And there's the bottom of it. And that looks perfectly fine as 18th century, with this recessed bottom on it and so forth. Nice looking glaze. If you're a monochrome buyer, don't be afraid to bid on this. This is a nice lot. The other pieces are okay. The tots is kind of charming and interesting. The compote here on the left, and it's nicely decorated. And you have this sort of incense. I think this is some sort of incense burner. And then you have this very, classically done shaped a vase with the mask handles on the sides. But I believe it has as I recall, it had a crack. Yeah, there it is. It's got a crack in it right here. It's got a big crack through the body. It's probably why it got in the lot. Here it is, all through there. This is all cracked on the back, cracked down the side. It's got a chip associated with the crack. So it's hit everything but the lottery. But it's sort of a throwaway that comes with it. And there's the underside of the taza. It looks like an 18th century pot to me. But the big vase, I think, is very charming. And if you can pick that up, that's a good thing to buy. All right, and then over to this. This is another example that's in that sale. It's a very charming cabinet vase. And they'd misdated this as 19th or 20th century. It's not. This is an older vase. And you just have to take a good look at the way it's decorated, femi-noir with green enamels. And then you get around to here, and you have these old collector's tags on it. And look at the base of that thing. That's an 18th century bottom. This is a very nice little vase. It's much better than they think it is. It's a very charming example. I would want to find out what's going on here. Is that an old paper label that didn't get off all the way, or is it a repair? I can't tell from the picture. I suspect it's a paper label that's still stuck on there from an old collection. But this is a very lovely form. And again, $200 to $300 estimate. It should go through that. It should bring about double that if the past sales results on miniature vases are any indication. A lot of people collect miniature vases. It's a big area of collecting. All right. And the last thing in the sale is this. If you're looking for a great piece of furniture, you might want to go and look at this thing. And this is also at Nate House. It's really nice. Chippendale mahogany reverse serpentine chest of drawers, 18th century. It's got this very cool wave base. It's I assume it's probably from the Connecticut area with that base on it. I may be wrong. If any of you out there, Americana nuts, know this, but it's a serpentine front chest. It's been refinished some time ago, but it's got a great look to it. It's a beautiful piece of furniture. Here's the bottom of it. Absolutely fine. That's what they should look like. This is what when you look under old furniture, that's what you want to see. Big, cheap pine planks, because they didn't use good wood. Wood was high quality wood was very precious. So on the backs of chests and on the underboards, like here, they would often use very cheap cuts with big knots in them and all kinds of things going on, just because no one's ever going to look at it again once it's in there. And I'm going to bet the backboards are sort of the same type of material. That shouldn't discourage anybody. And there it is. This glue block looks like it's maybe been knocked out and nailed back in, which is not unusual. The old hide glue used to let go after a while. But this is a good looking bureau, I think. And it's estimated at $3,000 to $5,000 with a $1,500 opening bid. It's got 34 people watching it, so it might do pretty well. But if you want a nice piece, you might want to go after that. And then this is the Bronx sale, the Armorial plates I mentioned at the beginning. This sale is coming up on the 21st, just in a few days, less than a week from now. So if you miss the Freeman stuff, the Armorial wares, and you're still interested, check out the Bronx sale. They have good things. They're nice people. They do a hell of a good job down there. It's a good auction house. What can I tell you? The South is very fortunate to have two good auction houses right in North Carolina, having a Bronx and Leland Little right there. It's you don't find that very much in Boston. In the Boston area, we have a few good auction houses, but there aren't many good, reputable auction houses in clusters anymore. A lot of them are just horrible. All right, and then hopping along over to this. This is coming up at Nye & Company in Bloomfield, New Jersey. If you're an Amari charger collector, you want to look at this plate. This is a wild plate. It's 18 inches, as I recall, 18 1/4 inches in diameter, and it is 19th century Meiji. It's Meiji period, or very, very late Edo. But it's got the twin phoenix pattern, and then it's got dragons going around the twin phoenixes. So it's like the dragons are often to represent the emperor, and the phoenixes often represent the empress. So the dragons are sort of circling and protecting the phoenix. But the outside border decorations are wonderful. You have more phoenixes along here in iron red. And the greens almost look like Daosai. It's a very, very handsome, unusual platter. There's a good detail of it up close. Nice, vibrant cobalt blue. The gilding looks good on it. And it is estimated very reasonably, $300 to $450. Should get there. If you like old Amari, it's a very colorful piece, and it's big enough to hang beautifully. All right, and then this is, speaking of Leland Little, this is coming at Leland Little. It's a general sale they're running, but I noticed these in here. This is a pretty good opportunity. They've got 6 plates in here. Now they have the iron red, orange red with gilt butterfly and flower pattern plates at the top. Those are all 19th century. But down below, you've got these, and these are Qashqai Amari, and they look a lot like, if you know anything about English porcelain and pottery, Mason's ironstone made lots of copies of these over the years. These aren't Masons; these are Chinese, but this is where Masons got the idea to make them. And these are very, very pretty. Nice looking 4 of them. They look like they're in good shape. You might get a condition report on them, but they look like they're in good shape. They have nice white backs on them. And right now, the starting price is just $50. There are 11 people watching them. And the sale is on the 23rd. It's a little less than 6 days from now. But it's a nice lot. If you like Chinese plates, you're looking to buy some to decorate a wall with, or to eat off of, for that matter, you might want to look at these. They measure about 9 inches or so in diameter, 9 3/4 in diameter, and very attractive. And over to this is coming up in Canada at Kavanagh Auctions. If you're a Japanese scroll buyer, you want to look at these. These look quite good. this looks like a very interesting scroll. For some reason, they didn't roll it out all the way, and I don't know if it was laziness or are they hiding something. So you want to, if you're interested in these kinds of paintings, you always want to get it fully laid out, photographed under good light to make sure that it is what it appears to be. But the decoration on here with the samurais, and you have a samurai tussling with a monkey and an attendant coming up over here. It's a rather nice scroll. And the estimates, 50 Canadian to 50,000. So they do sort of a broad estimate. But the opening bid is only $38, $36 US. And right now there are just 8 people watching it. And of course, if you ship things like this, they go in a tube. It's not expensive to ship them. So you might want to look into that. There's a pretty good write-up on it down below. Check that out. And then you have this rug. This is coming up at Torg Auctions over in the UK in about on November 8th. And it's a very, very interesting rug. It's dated. And it's dated 1315 in the Persian calendar, which is about 1936, 1937, somewhere around there. But what's very interesting about this rug, not only that it's nearly 100 years old, it's getting there, it's 90 years old, is that this rug is in absolutely perfect condition. It's signed by the weaver. It measures about 6 by 9 feet, so it's pretty good size. I'm going to get the exact size here. Hold on a second. It is 77 inches, so it's 6'5" by just a hair under 10 feet, 9 feet 8 inches or so. But what's really interesting about this carpet is a Qashqai, and it is in absolutely perfect condition. It has its full pile. And it's one of those things that apparently somebody got it, brought it home, they loved it, they thought it was so beautiful. They never walked on it. It's been rolled up in a tube somewhere. And the dyes in it look all okay. They all look natural to me. The colors are spectacular. It's in this bota, it's known as a bota pattern, very similar to Paisley shawls. And it's a big, beautiful rug that's in perfect condition. And if you've been looking for a great looking rug, this is it. This is a really, really fine carpet. The estimate is fairly strong, 5,000 to 6,000 pounds, but it's perfect and it's old, and you don't see them very often. You hardly ever see them. You hardly ever see a rug that's dated, signed, and still in perfect condition. It's a very unusual opportunity. If you're looking for something just a little special, something very, very great, to put in a room in your house or to hang as a tapestry even, this would be something to think about. I think it's awfully attractive. And while the estimate's a little strong, I don't think it's crazy. If you went into it, like I said, if you went to a rug store in London or in New York or Paris or any major city where they have good rug shops, this rug would be probably $12,000 to $15,000 pretty easily, maybe 20. Because of the condition of it. It is absolutely pristine, and I think it's a great thing. There's some other rugs in the sale that are pretty good looking too, but this really is a standout. So if you're looking for a great rug, you might want to check this one out. All right? All right. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks for watching. We've got to get back to work here and we just have the computer install done just enough that we could do the recording. We were scrambling. I got up at 4 o'clock this morning to install the software and get everything going because it takes a while these days with these machines because nothing comes in them. Everything has to be downloaded. It's a real pain in the neck. At any rate, we got it done, and here we are. So we made it. We made it. All right. Have a wonderful weekend, and check out the newsletter page. I haven't mentioned it much lately, but we've been posting over there, by the way. I should mention this. The newsletter page, because we stopped really doing much with the eBay listing just because we found eBay's content it's gotten so bad. It was too frustrating to even look there. And I just ended up getting angry with all the fakes on there. So we decided to put some of the pieces on there that you might find on that you'll find on the global member page. It's a small percentage, maybe 5%, but to give you an idea what's over there and see some things that we've seen that are on live auctioneers or somewhere that are of good value. And we've been posting articles over there that we found on the internet that we think people will enjoy with images and illustrations and so forth. And some of the articles have been quite good. I've gotten some good feedback from all of you, and I appreciate it. I'm glad you're enjoying them, and we'll keep doing them. And if you don't get the notice of the newsletter page, you can sign up for it. It's free. I don't ask you for any information. We don't rent lists. So there we are. All right. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week, and enjoy the autumn. Enjoy the autumn. It's looking pretty crisp out there. All right. Bye-bye.